Hey Pete.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, very, very good. The sun's coming in today or this afternoon, so it's all right. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. I'm not too bad. Just sort of carrying on as we all are.
Yeah, excellent. Laura's okay, and Janine, and
Yep, she's fine. Yeah, Jim's fine. I haven't seen her for a few weeks, but I keep seeing her on screen, so that's quite nice. But Laura's absolutely fine. Baby's absolutely fine. So we're all just one of the lucky things for us in some ways is we do quite a lot of remote work anyway. So in terms of working from home and stuff like that, we've already got all that, already had all that in place. So we
yeah,
managed to sort of carry on as normal a little bit, which has been quite nice.
excellent. So I've known you for a number of years now, and seen your business blossom. For those that don't know who you are and what you do, if you'd like to share with everybody watching, that would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. So my name's Pete. I'm one of the directors at Introtweet. We're a team of three based in the centre of Taunton, and we are a social media company. So we do anything and everything social media. We do management where we run it for businesses. So we take over everything, create all the content, deal with everything that comes in, and just run it day to day. And we also do training. So me and Laura used to be teachers, so we do quite a lot of large scale workshops, but also one-to-one trainings where the idea is we teach people to do it as we do it. Um, and then alongside that, we do some online support. So we've done that for a couple of years now, where we've done things like audits for people, and we've got our School of Social Media, which is kind of like a retainer service almost, just a chance to ask us questions and get information. And in the wake of what's gone on, we've moved some other things online as well, which has been on our list for a long time, but not we never sort of got round to it because we thought we needed weeks to plan it and do it, and of course we never had that time. So in the end, it took us about 3 hours. So lesson learned.
That's the thing. You sort of think about these things, and when you're sort of forced to sort of make those changes, it's sometimes an easier transition than you think, isn't it? So
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We like what we've done is we moved our one-to-one trainings online and our workshops, so we do them using Zoom. And as I say, like for years, we'd looked at it and said we need to do that so we can open it up to a different market and people who can't travel and things like that. And we just said, right, we'll clear a week and we'll go to Bristol for a day and we'll rent, do some hot desking or something, come up with some ideas and figure out how it's all going to work. And of course, you don't ever have the time for that really.
yeah.
And then when all this happened, we said, right, sit down, let's sort it out. And as I say, it literally took about 3 hours. Oh, let's do it on Zoom. Let's try it. Does it work? Yeah, perfect. Okay. And that was it. So yeah, as I say, lesson learned from that.
Excellent. So how's it been for yourself with obviously that transition to more stuff online? How's that been with working with clients, and how have they adjusted? And how have you seen this from a sort of social media point of view? How do you think sort of brands have been behaving, and more sort of smaller local businesses?
Yeah. In terms of how we've been getting on, we're more fortunate than lots of other businesses, I think, in the sense that, as I said, firstly, it hasn't affected our working habits, which is really nice. We for the first 5 years of the business, we worked from home, so we've been able to transition into that quite easily. It's been a real mix for the clients. We've got some clients who are shops and restaurants who obviously aren't currently open.
Yeah.
So we've paused their service for them, which is sort of nice to be able to do. But obviously, they would rather be open, and we'd rather be doing what we normally do for them. Um, but we've been quite fortunate in that lots of clients have carried on as normal on the basis that in lots of ways it's the only way they can market. They'd normally be doing lots of networking. They'd normally be thinking about things like radio and print and things like that, and that's not necessarily accessible to them as it was before. So they're seeing their social media as their one main avenue really, where they can still reach people. And even if they're not doing what they normally do, there's still a lot to be said for keeping that presence active and staying visible at the moment and making sure that you are providing something for people. So we're quite fortunate in that sense that lots of people have seen
Yeah.
the benefit of doing that. And I think it's fair to say we've had a quieter month than we would have done had this not been going on, but not to the extent that some businesses are having to deal with. So we're quite fortunate in that sense. I think in terms of what businesses are doing differently on social media, I think you are a really good example of this, but providing value is the biggest thing that people have shifted towards. And I think that's something that you should always do from your social media platform. I think it's easy for people to fall into the trap of just promoting all the time, which doesn't work on social media anyway. But we would always say that you want maybe 2 of your posts, weekly posts, or 3 of your posts every week, or something like that, to be giving something just for the benefit of giving it to somebody. So a blog about 5 top tips from working from home. Another blog from somewhere else which is talking about remote working and how to do everything, what the tech that you're going to need and things like that. this is the sort of stuff that people are sharing a lot more of. And as I say, you're a really good example of this. There are companies like ADPR, for example, the PR guys who are doing lots of online, doing lots of blogs. And I think the mistake people make with stuff like that sometimes is they don't see that as still marketing yourself. It is. You're still keeping yourself visible. You're keeping yourself in people's minds, so that when we do go back to some semblance of normality, it's you that people are going to think of. So I think it's great to see so many businesses staying visible. And I think something we've been saying to people is, you need to make sure that it looks like you're still functioning and you're still doing things, even if you're not. So even if you are very quiet, that doesn't mean there aren't things that you can be talking about and things that you can be offering people. And value is the most important thing. People don't want to be marketed to at the moment, not really. There are some cases where this isn't right, because obviously if you do takeaway food, for example, there are lots of local companies who do remote desktops and working from home solutions and things like that. Obviously, they are very much in need at the moment, so they do need to be marketing what they do. But for lots of people, just give people as much value as you can, share some positivity. There's so many great things going on locally. And of course, social media is one of the best platforms for getting those stories out there. So use your platforms for that as much as anything, and just give people something to sort of, that's going to give them some, either make them smile or give them some benefit of how they can do what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think it's weird to think if it was 30 years ago and this happened, we'd be writing letters to each other or sending them fax.
I know, it's terrifying, really.
Yeah, and
I don't know how you do it. You'd be waving at each other across the road.
Yeah, with a paper aeroplane to your neighbours or something. But it's how it's evolved and connect on worldwide with people and reaching your audience. And you mentioned like sharing that value, and there's that change of kind of outbound marketing, as you said, broadcast and saying this is what we do, and it's very much now. Here's my advice. Here's who I am, and come and find it and take what you want. And if you want to talk some more, then talk. And it made me think of your mantra. If you wouldn't mind mentioning your mantra at Introtweet, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So our mantra, which those people who come to our events and things, just like Paul does, have heard 1,000,001 times, that you need to engage to get engagement. So broadcasting on social media is not enough. If you're just putting out information all the time, all you're doing is relying on people coming to you and finding it, which will happen sometimes, but won't necessarily happen that much. The benefit of social media over some other types of marketing, what it gives you that's different, the ability to actually engage with people. So go onto Twitter and chat with other local businesses, join Facebook groups and drop in top tips and things like that. That's what social media gives you that some other things don't. So if you're just putting out information about your services or about anything, it doesn't matter. If all you're doing is broadcasting, it will only get you so far. And I think, as Paul's saying, as you're saying, sorry, Paul, I think it's a really interesting thing that hopefully will come out of this, is people are seeing the benefit of actually just talking to people and just having those conversations and sharing other people's content, joining in with conversations that's taking place in groups and things like that. And that should always have been part of activity. But when we're busier and people tend to overly focus on content. As long as I've had a post that's gone out today, I've done what I need to do, and I can shut the lid on it and I can leave it. But a lot of the time you'd be better off not bothering doing that post and actually spending some time talking to people and engaging with what's going on. And hopefully that's something that may come out of this for people with their social media use.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with that, and other people I've spoken to from sort of marketing field, this digital marketing, but traditional marketing, is it all takes time. And and it's not something you turn off and on. And I've mentioned, like, people who go to networking a couple of times and they go, oh, I tried it, didn't work, or oh, I went on Twitter for a month, and they're not going to work. They're about building that relationship over time. And I know now that, one of the talks I gave years ago, probably 2014, one of the points I made was like, I would say to hang out with the big kids, particularly for me, for Twitter, by hanging out with people that are in your field. I've connected with graphic designers all over the world. That when I bought a book from somebody, from David Airy, famous graphic designer in Ireland, and just tweeting me with the book arriving, and then he retweets it, and then it opens up. Well, if David likes this guy, then I like this guy, and for me, it's just unlocking and connecting with those people. And some people don't see the long-term benefits of social media, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think it's one of the things that we have to battle a little bit with the management side of things in particular, is managing people's expectations, because I think people sometimes assume, and we've had this in meetings where people have come in and said, so if I hire you, then I'm going to sell 10,000 of these a month. That's right, isn't it? And so I think, well, you know, it might take 6 months to get your profiles up to a number where enough people are seeing it to buy anything. And
Yeah,
it's especially now. It wasn't the case a few years ago. It used to be, using Twitter as an example, you could build 100 followers a day quite easily 4 or 5 years ago. You can still build your followers quickly, but it takes a lot longer than it used to. And Facebook is the worst one for that at the moment. It takes real time, all money, advertising to get it up and running. But you're absolutely right. Like, it is a long game, and it's like, you know, social media is no different to any other type of marketing, and it's all touch points. These things all work best together. So you mentioned networking works well, but then when you get home and you get on Twitter and you start tweeting the people who are there, you amplify the benefit of that twofold. Likewise, if you're on Twitter and then you go to Word Gets Around, for example, you meet someone who you've been chatting to on Twitter for a month, it makes a massive difference. And, you know, all social media is not different to other marketing. I think that's something that people often see it is, you know, I have my marketing and then I have my social media. You know, it should just be part of what you're already doing, alongside things like networking and print and all those different things. They all work best together. And it's very, very rare that there's a business that could survive just on its social media presence.
absolutely.
We haven't worked with one yet.
Yeah, and I think alongside, I mean, I was just thinking about if it's in terms of social, well, in websites, it's the classic, I want to be on the first page of Google in a week. It's the same as going, I want all these people buying my stuff with the social media. But I think one of the things which is that lots of people think, oh, you must be asked this a million times, do I need to be on Instagram? Do I need to be on Twitter? And I guess, first of all, is when you speak to people, I guess it's working out what your goals are and what are the benefits. They're all quite different, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've touched on a really important point, which is, why are you on there? Because for some people, it will be because they've been told that they have to be. And although that may be true, that's not necessarily a motivation to be on there. You've got to really think about what you're trying to achieve with it. And there is more. It's very hard with social media to quantify a success, especially if your guide is sales and inquiries and that's it. So one of the things that we say to people is, you know, social media, at the end of the day, if you're using it as a marketing avenue, you are using it to either get sales or inquiries, depending on what you do. But you do have to take a bit of a holistic view with it, very much like networking, as you said. So, you know, you might go networking and you might not get a phone call the next morning, but you might get one in 3 years' time from someone who said, I met you at Word Gets Around a few years ago. And it comes from there, and you have to look at it like that. And social media is the same. You have to look at it on the wider scope of, well, actually, I've reached 10,000 people this month that I didn't reach last month. My web traffic has doubled, and I've sold twice as many as I would have done. Although I can't directly link it, you know, there's no bit of data that says to me that sale came because of that Facebook post. You have to look at it in a holistic value and say, well, I'm happy to take a bit of a leap of faith with it and say that it's because of that. But also, I'm just happy because I'm reaching loads of people and my presence is building. And, you know, if you look at social media and say, I want to use it to increase my brand awareness, it will always work for you. It will always be successful.
Yeah.
And, you know, you want to cultivate a community and keep your current clients engaged. There's loads of different things that it's for. If you look at it in that sense, it will always be successful. If you only define it by sales, it's difficult, because it doesn't mean you're not getting sales, but you don't know it. The classic example I've got, just 2 seconds, is we worked with a kitchen design company a couple of years ago, and they gave me a call. We hadn't actually met. We'd done it all remotely, and they wanted a meeting, so I went out to meet them, and he sort of thinking, oh, I wonder what they've done. And you get out there, and basically they'd sold 2 50-grand kitchens on the back of stuff we'd done on Facebook for them. And we just had a bit of a chat about it. It was because we'd been putting albums on of their different projects. I said to them, sort of at the end of it, I said, how did you find out? Because I'm monitoring all of their accounts, so I hadn't seen any messages come in or anything like that. And they said they did the 2 weeks of prep, they did the 4 weeks of fitting, and then 2 weeks of aftercare. And they did a follow-up email 3 months later asking why they chose them. And one of the ladies replied and just said, I had 2 people I wanted to choose from when I got their 2 Facebook pages up, and I preferred the look of what you guys had done. And if they hadn't sent that email, they'd have had absolutely no idea. They'd have made a significant amount of money on the back of in comparison, an insignificant sort of investment. And social media is like that. You know, people will see a Facebook post and then they'll pick up the phone and ring you. It's
Yeah.
very hard to know where that's come from sometimes.
I think that's the most fascinating thing I've found with social media since it's. I mean, I was jumping on Facebook. I think was it 2006, 7 when it started. Something like that?
Yes, 2007, I think, if I remember. Yeah.
Put you on the spot there, then. I?
Well, do you know what's even more stupid is I had that as a quiz question because I did a social media round the other week and I still can't remember it. Anyway.
but I've always found that sometimes, which is exactly as you mentioned then, is when you put things out there and sometimes people might not like it, they might not retweet it, or they might not share something. But amount of times I've gone to things and people come up to me, oh, I was laughing what you put on there the other day, or I really enjoyed this, and you think it's an unknown. You don't know how many people are seeing. The people that are engaging, you've got a clear idea of the stats, but you don't know sometimes. And I know that, you know, sometimes things that you don't think can go somewhere. There's so many things that have gone viral that people have picked up, and something gets picked up on that. And I've benefited a great deal from things happening unexpectedly on social media, which has, you know, been fantastic. Say, connected with people, and something happens, and also it's. I found it, particularly if you say if you're a small business, it's about your personality that shines through, isn't it? And how that, you know, how that appeals to people.
Definitely, and I think what I often say to people is that we've always had this sort of people buy from people adage, and social media is just an extension of that. Really, it's your chance to show people the people behind your brand, processes that go on behind the scenes, because everybody assumes what they do is boring, but to the people who follow you and don't do it every day, actually people are really interested in how things work and how things run behind the scenes. And you know, those of you who check your stats and things quite regularly, it will always be the content where it's you or it's somebody in the team and there's faces in the photos and there's actions taking place. It will always be that content that will perform best and get the most engagement. And sometimes we've worked with businesses before who actually haven't liked that and have said, well, that's fine, but that's no benefit to me. Because I need engagement on my promotional posts about our offers and things like that. And the problem is you have to play a bit of a game with social media. You know, if you don't use the personality and you don't get the engagement at that point, nobody sees your promotional message. So you have to use that to draw people in so that you can then carry on marketing to them. And I think that message has come through for most businesses now, but I think there are still some who are quite sort of corporate and look at it and say, well, that's not appropriate for us. And I think in a nice way, we would sort of say to them, you need to get over that. If you want to be on social media, if you don't think it's appropriate, you're probably better off not being on there at all.
Yeah.
But personality is everything, and people do buy from people. People want to know. People don't want to engage with the brand. They want to know who the people are behind that business. And social media is a fantastic way of doing that.
Yeah, I remember looking at all the posts and things I put on our business one, and most popular one was my godson in his Christmas jumper, you know. And I'm really proud of a logo I've created, for instance, and I upload it and say I've just launched this new brand for this, you know, and I get like my auntie like it, and you know, the wife and a couple of friends, and then you know, you put some. Obviously, people love animals and that engagement, but often it's I've done lots of tests, and I think another thing is to test what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I've put up before a load of just a color palette of a logo that I was working on, just the different shades. And I said, I'm working on a new logo for a client. What do you think they do? Now, because there was no right or wrong answer, people felt you encourage them to engage. And people sometimes think, oh, I'm not a designer, I couldn't possibly comment. But if you put something up there that I guess encourages people, sometimes you make statements as opposed to, like you said, is engaging and encouraging people to get involved and talk to you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's one of the things we say to people a lot in our trainings is if you can phrase your post as questions, it gives people a sort of implicit invitation to get involved. And it's a brilliant way of getting engagement because people, it's like doing polls, or another great example. So doing Facebook polls or Twitter or Instagram stories, or coming to LinkedIn soon, apparently, which is going to upset a few people. But questions are a brilliant thing because people want to be involved. They want to have those conversations, but it makes a huge difference how you phrase your post. It really does. If you've got a big full stop at the end of it and it's just a statement, people don't feel that they've got the right almost to come in and get involved in that conversation. But by phrasing it as a question, they'll dive in. And, you know, using Facebook as an example specifically, comments are your gold standard. You know, it used to be we all wanted shares, now we want comments and conversation. So, you know, we try and do a poll a week for our clients if we can. And then around that, we try and phrase as many posts as questions as we can. So, you know, if we were sharing a blog that was saying, you know, here's 5 top tips on working from home while you're also homeschooling, for example, you know, you do that as your statement, and then you chuck in there, have you had success with any of these? What are your ideas? Let us know. Things like that. And it's just a tiny thing, but it can make a really big difference.
Well, you're always obviously on the forefront of what things changing so fast in social media, and there's, I guess, there's been a big rise in live streaming, and and since obviously LinkedIn got taken over, and there's been lots of changes with LinkedIn. How are you finding more people, you know, kind of less scared to use live video, or even video like this, where, you know, because some people are very funny about seeing their own face and that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. I think that's one of the things that will come out of this situation is live video. I think when this first happened, I mean, we've been banging on about live video for years, and I completely understand why people don't want to do it. I really do. It took us a while to jump in, actually, but now is the best time to be using something like that, because it's a way of you interacting with your audience in a way that you would normally do by going out and by going networking and by having meetings, but you can do it as live video. And I think been around for a while, and it has been badly underused, I would say, in a business sense. There are so many creative ways you can use it, and it's something you can monetize. For example, if you want to start using your social media to do paid webinars and things like that, you can use Facebook for that, and there's no upfront costs. There's so many different things you can do with it, and hopefully people are sort of so used to doing things like this and seeing their face on screen now, but actually that next step of going live on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, wherever it is, LinkedIn soon, hopefully people will just sort of say, well, actually I'm comfortable doing it now, and I want people to see the people behind the business. You know, Q&As are probably the best use of it, I would say, depending on what you do. You can also do demonstrations, you can do discussions, you can do interviews. You can use something like Zoom, and you can broadcast onto Facebook Live, which means you can have multiple people involved. So live video is a sort of gift that keeps giving, really. And I think on Facebook in particular, one of the joys of live video is it's not just the video itself, it's the benefit you get for a couple of weeks afterwards. So your reach on your subsequent post normally be higher for about 2 or 3 weeks than it would have been if you hadn't done the video. So it's almost worth doing just for that reason, forgetting about the video itself. I can give a couple of tips if you like on live video, if that'd be useful. Think logistics. It does make a difference. So one of the big benefit of live video is that people can engage with you in real time. So they can ask you questions, and you can then follow up on that. You can have proper discussion with people. So you need to make sure you can see the questions coming in. So if you're doing it on your own, you know, what I do if I'm doing them on my own is I get my phone set up on a stand doing a recording, and then I got my laptop up and open underneath it, and then I'm watching my own video, and then I can see the questions come in. If you don't want to do that, if you've got 2 people doing it, which can also work really well, just have somebody off screen who's taking in the questions. If you do that, don't try and hide that that's what you're doing, because it never works. And I see people do that where they're sort of trying to read the questions off a card or something. Just don't do it. Just say, Pete's off screen, he's just going to ask me the questions. It needs to be at least 5 minutes long. I would push that probably to 10 minutes as a minimum, ideally. And the reason is because they send out notifications to let people know that you've gone live to try and help you build your audience. If the video is too short, by the time those people start coming across, the video's finished. So at least 5 minutes, but probably 10. And I think beyond that, one thing that is important is make sure you've got no copyrighted music playing behind you or in the background anywhere, because they'll just mute your video. And they're really hot on that, so they will pick up on that really quickly. But live video is brilliant, and it's one of those things, once you do it once, you'll wonder why you waited so long, why you had so many worries. One more thing, actually. For the first couple of minutes of it, make sure you've got something to talk about, because it takes time for the audience to build. So if you're doing a Q&A, for example, make sure you've got 2 or 3 minutes of introduction that you can give, whether you can just introduce yourself and the business, and maybe some pre-arranged questions that people have asked in the past or things like that, just to give the video a chance to get going and your audience to build, because it doesn't when you go live, nobody will be watching. So it takes a couple of minutes for it to grow from there. So make sure you've got a little bit of chat planned in.
No, I've said so been doing some online quizzes, and I've noticed that with, say, I've never really done it before, and I did notice extending the time before to grow the audience that you're live. And I've had a countdown going to its start, so it gets people, like so, tells them a notification that you're live. They maybe got time to go and grab a cup of tea or a beer or something.
That's a good idea.
And I think, and a lot of it is just start doing it. It always amazes me when you look back at some of the really famous vloggers that started. For example, like Zuella in this country as a vlogger, you look back at when I don't know how old she was when she started at 12 or something, but you go back and look at the fact that she's just on an old phone talking about things in her bedroom, like, oh, here's my phone, here's my pen. And it's just so amateurish. And now you look at it's like a TV show, and there's all these things moving in. You're like, whoa! But everyone's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And see where it goes.
It's just being proactive, isn't it? And just there are very few businesses that I can't think of any business that wouldn't benefit from being on social media. And I think, as you say, that one of the people were probably a little bit reticent of it and sort of think, I don't know if I've got the skill and things like that. Figure out which platforms are right for you and get on there. And just being consistent is half the battle. If you're posting regularly, and by regularly I mean ideally daily or maybe every other day, if not, that's half the battle. If you're doing that, you'll very quickly start to pick up on the rest of it. So definitely just throw yourself into it and give everything a try. Do a live video, join some groups, create events, do some polls. As you said, try all these things. And it doesn't take long to figure out which things are sort of resonating and which things you might do a little bit less of. But you've got to do it in the first place.
And also, I was talking to Shane in one of the videos about the kit. I think obviously lots of webcams are out of stock, and people are buying the kit, and we're quite keen to buy some new kit. And I guess hopefully it's forced the issue in Somerset to improve broadband, particularly remote places, that if we're going to be using all this stuff, we're going to need better infrastructure to for people to use it.
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult for the government to tell everybody they've got to carry on working from home if they can't use the internet. So I think, I know they make all the right noises about it, but it may bring all that forward a couple of years with any luck. And I think, we've done a lot of remote working in the past anyway. We've done quite a lot where, I've used Zoom more in the last 2 months than I have done in my previous 10 years, but I've used it before for video calls and things like that. I think something that may come of this is the days of sort of driving off for meetings and, on a bigger scale, people flying for meetings and stuff like that. I don't think people are going to do it anymore. And I think that personally, I think that's a good thing, because I don't think you need it. I think it's pretty rare that, obviously it's not always the case, and some businesses will need that face-to-face interaction for various reasons. But 9 times out of 10, a Zoom call like this or a phone call would be completely fine. And I think businesses will start shifting to that, and you might have 2 hours a day more than you did before, and that's a huge thing for anyone who's in business or running a business. Time is everything. So if you can use that, obviously these are really difficult times for lots of people, but if we can try and take some positive things out of it into the future and change our style for the better and free up some time in the process, that would be a great thing to come from this.
Yeah, I think it will, and obviously it will also impact sort of carbon footprint of hopefully less cars about, and like I say, those people travelling that maybe didn't need to, and like you said, just to get more done in the day. If you get more time to do things for yourself as well, a bit of time out away from work, if you free up that, So I think it's been such a horrific time in terms of what's happening, but there are positives, and it's nice to have seen businesses pivot and see opportunities to either learn new skills, try some things out, and pick up different skills and along the way. So
definitely. I think nothing like a sort of a difficult situation or a crisis like this to sort of force your hand and make you think differently. And whether it's remote working or just completely bringing in new services or changing different types of product, or I suspect there's a lot of businesses that will be thinking very differently about how they're going to grow in the future, for example. And do they want to be hiring lots more people as might have been planned previously, or do they want to necessarily go to a bigger office and all those sorts of things? And you would never want something like this to happen to make you have to think in that way. But if that is what comes out of this, that will be positive for some businesses going forward, definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this finally before we go, was about, because it's one of the great things, particularly in Taunton and other parts of Somerset, has been the support groups with coronavirus, local support groups, and how social media has been fundamental in connecting those people. And how would that have been done without Facebook? And
I can't imagine. I guess in the past, you would have had the same thing because people could have stood next to each other. So you'd have had local towns and parishes and things like that getting together and supporting their community. But of course, that wouldn't have been possible. And I think one of the things that we're sort of hopeful out of this is, I think social media gets an unnecessarily bad rep at times. I completely appreciate that there are issues with it around mental health and around kids in particular. And as I say, I do completely appreciate that. But this whole situation is hopefully showing people what an incredible benefit it can be. And at the end of the day, social media is just communication. So that's all it really offers. And the fact that Facebook, we've got the local Facebook groups that are up at 13,000 members. These groups are being used for people to message in and saying, I've got an emergency, I need to get to a pharmacy, but I've got no transport. Can someone give me a lift?
Yeah.
And these things are happening instantaneously purely because of the power of social media. And I think there's never been a more important time for businesses to be on there, and there has never been a more important time for people to be using it personally, because whether it's finding things for your kids to do because you're homeschooling them, whether it's finding some great resources for you because you want to find a way to chill out in the evening, and of course staying up with the news. And I think when this all started, I think we were all spending all day watching the news, and obviously that's not great for anybody. But one of the big things that's always thrown at social media is fake news, and there are issues around that which I don't know how the social media platforms solve really, because you then get into censorship and all those things. But if you find the right sources, so if you go to Public Health England, NHS, all these places, and all the local news outlets and things like that, if you find the right accounts, it's the best way to get your news, or one of the best ways of doing that, especially when everything is changing hourly. If you do need to make changes for things, you can find all that out on social media. So I'm very hopeful that people will come out of this and a little bit as we are, and sort of saying, thank God for social media, basically. If we didn't have it, where would huge swathes of society, where would they have been in this crisis? What would we have done? And I'm hoping people will take that out.
Brilliant. Well, that's been excellent. And I'll share some links to the projects that you're working on, and obviously the things that you're doing during lockdown, and your website and things. I'm just going to end, Pete, if I may, on I know you and Laura used to be teachers previously. Well, you're still teachers now, but in a different way. When you, what would you do differently if you weren't working in social media, or what were you told, or what did you want to be when you were at school?
I wanted footballer when I was at school. I was always going to captain England. That was never a question in my mind. And I think I got to about 16 and realised I was nowhere near good enough. So that ended pretty quickly. I think I said I wanted to be a lawyer at one point, but I can't imagine why. So I think I went through everything really. What would I be doing if I didn't do this? I don't know. I'm probably still teaching, I guess. I don't know. But I'd have always loved to have done something with animals. I'd love to do, if I had a dream job lined up, it would be either England cricket captain or wildlife photographer. Be one of those two. But I think they're one of those things you dream about, but like I'm not very good with the heat, for example. So I'd go out and I'd be in these places taking these great photos, but hiding in the shade and collapsing all over the place. So I don't know if that would be a great fit or not. But interesting question.
Brilliant. Well, maybe you could be helping out with the Cats of Instagram page or something.
I'd love to do it. Me and Laura said our retirement plan is to sell the business and set up a cattery like in the back of the house, and just live with cats permanently. That would be our retirement plan.
Brilliant.
Many years from now.
Well, it's been lovely to catch up with you. Well done for everything you're doing. I'll share some links to the projects that you're working on. And please say hi to Laura and Janine and the family and everyone. Hope you're well.
I will do.
And we'll all connect, keeping in touch online while we can, and hopefully see you in person very soon.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thanks very much.
Right. Okay, Pete. All the best.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.